action.
Cool. G'day guys, I hope everyone's fit and well in these times. Today we're just going to go through hanging. So hanging is a very important part of climbing. So some hang training is really good. We can use a hangboard. My favourite hangboard is this Beastmaker over here, the wooden Beastmaker. A little bit better on the skin, generally, but the Metallis holds are really good, and there's plenty of other options out there. But if you're not lucky enough to have a hangboard at home, what we can use is a door frame. So door frames here, very handy. So it's very sturdy. This one's a pulse built one, so we know it's okay. So check with your parents or people in the place and just assess the door frame before you start using it on the way through. So before we start hanging, it's very important that we're warmed up. All these tendons are quite small, so we want to make sure that we've got our fluids up and our fingers are nice and warm, ready to apply the strain that we're going to put on them. It's very important not to overstrain. So if something hurts, learn to let go straight away. So it's not worth getting an injury to improve your strength. So what we want to thinking about is hanging is more about talking to our fingers, stimulating our fingers, sending information to our fingers to keep active and to keep engaged on the way through. So once you're straining something, you're breaking down that muscle fibre on the way through. And once you break down that, you've got to grow it again on the way through. So we can also get stronger by just learning how to use our fingers better on the way through. So before we start hanging, it's good to focus on the rest of our body as well. So our legs are something I'm not really going to use for hanging, so we'll start from the top up. So fingers, elbow, shoulders. So it's good when you're hanging, your shoulders and scapula come a lot into it, so it's good to make sure your shoulders are nice and warm, and just helps to increase the blood flow to the rest of your body as well. So a couple of good warm-ups with shoulder rolls, keeping your arms moving. It's important not to stretch too much before you start contracting the muscle all the way through. So it was seen a while ago that you stretch before exercise. Now it's more about warming up and engaging those muscles, waking them up and getting them ready to do the job all the way through. So a couple of good shoulder exercises. It's good to get a stick. And if you don't have a stick at home, you can use a mop. I chose a mop because it's way more funnier. No other reason besides that. So just getting the shoulders moving all the way through, and the smell of the mop just makes you know that you're alive all the way through. So good shoulder dislocators, so 2 hands out in front, and this is something I need to work on because I know my shoulder mobility is not the best, but bring your shoulders all the way through. So try not to strain if it's too much, just ease off a little bit. What you can do, if it feels like you're over doing the joints, you can just loosen your grip a little bit and it'll give you a little bit more flexibility to get that range of motion all the way through. And I like to just play around with it a little bit, get the body moving, get the heart rate up a little bit so the blood's flowing through all the way through. Cool. I saw Bruce Lee do this weird thing like this once. It was pretty cool. We'll work with him. So shoulders, the other parts, the rest of our arms. So the thing that I commonly recommend to everybody is like wrist curls, thumb up, thumb up. But another fun thing I think is more activating is what I like to call rock rolls. So what we've got here at Pulse is a rock with a hole through it, attached to a bar, and then it's going to roll that bar up, keeping it nice straight back and rolling it down. And that way we're using all these other weird supporting muscles going around it as well. And you keep on doing that so you get a bit of a pump going. If you don't have a rock, what we can use is a bag of shopping, a sling, a broom, sticky tape it so it doesn't spin around, and then we can still roll it up. Keeping nice and straight, keeping the back straight. And rolling it down is just as important as rolling it up. You do that a few times and you'll start getting a little bit of lactic acid in the forearms. It's kind of what we want. Another good shoulder mobilization is just trying to keep your arms nice and straight and putting them up and look up if you want. Now if you did it on the ground, so can you see me there? So if you do it on the ground, I like to call them chalk angels. So keep your back nice and straight on the ground, your elbows and your forearms on the ground, and you just move them up all the way through. And we're starting by using our legs just for a bit of fun. So if you did this in the gym, there'll be chalk everywhere and you're making chalk angels on the ground. And another simple one that everyone knows really well, push-ups. So just a couple of push-ups. Remember, you're going to go all the way down, all the way up. If that's a little bit too much, you can put your knees down the ground and then the right distance all the way through. So that works the upper part of our shoulders. Get our triceps involved. Another simple, really good exercise is to a yoga thing. It's called a cobra. So you do cobra push-ups, really just engaging the triceps, went through, or on a chair or a bench, we do dips. Now with dips, it's very important not to overdo our joints. So when you either keep your heels or your palms right on the very edge, or turn your hands around so you're not overdoing the joints all the way through. That way you turn your hands around, it's opening your chest up a little bit, and using your chest muscles as well. So doing a set of 10 of those, doing 3 sets of 10. If you've got plenty of time, then 3 sets of 10. Get you nice and warm, simple good exercise. It gets you focus for what you're going to do as well all the way through. So now we're going moving up to our fingertips. So it's good to move our fingertips around. So a little light stretching, not overdoing it, because remember, if we're going to stretch it and then contract them, it's not good for the muscles or the tendons. A good exercise I like to do, put Shazam your hands together and try to bring them down as far as possible all the way through. So if you get down on the ground, Shazam your hands together and then stand, just bring your body up. And you'll be fine, feeling that stretch on the back of it and all the way through. Then you can bring your hands flat down on the ground. You're just going to draw circles with your upper body just to get that wrist happening all the way through. Get back the other way. Cool. So now we're almost ready to hang. So one benefit I think the door frame has over a lot of hangboards is that we can't use all the grips. It's really hard to do a full crimp on these slotted hangboards, and that's where door frame has a better advantage. So when we're doing a couple of crimps, we've got open crimp, chisel crimp, and then full crimp all the way through. So full crimp's a lot more prone to damage because the tendon's got to go all the way around the higher arc. It's a lot safer to try to learn how to do open crimp, but sometimes when you've got a really small hold, you need to engage the full crimp on the way through. So when you're doing full crimp, what that allows you to do is bring all 5 fingers into play. So 4 fingers and a thumb. For today we'll call the thumb a finger, whatever. So a lot of the time people are hanging, always just using the 3 fingers all the way through. On most people will have 5 fingers, 3 middle fingers, usually the strongest, and the pinky is a lot shorter than the rest of the fingers, and the thumb is also shorter. So to bring them all into play, you've got to round them all the way up and then try to bring them into a nice straight line so we touch the surface all at once all the way through. So a lot of people get really strong on those 3 fingers, which is good, but if you can increase the strength on the pinky finger, that's going to increase your overall hand strength as well. And your thumb, quite often indoors in the gym, a lot of the time you're going to be using your thumb wrapping around the outside of the holds, so that's another fifth of your handhold that you can be using as well. So what I like to do is, when you're hanging, is try to incorporate all your finger grips on the way through. So we have front 3 fingers, back 3 fingers, front 2, middle 2, and back 2 all the way through. So what that means, when we're on the slots, we can use all our fingers, all 4, warm up. We use front 3, use back 3, and your front 2, the pocket, middle 2, and back 2 is the hardest. So I like to really focus on those back 2 fingers because that incorporates that pinky finger all the way through. So if you can increase the strength of that pinky finger, that's going to increase by 1/5, so that's 20%, my maths is right, 20% stronger you can be by just focusing and talking to that pinky finger, getting that involved. Don't leave your pinky finger out. It wants to play too, it wants to climb as well. So let's see if we can get that pinky finger involved all the way through. So hangboards, it's very important to look after them, make sure they're nice and clean all the time. I know some people, we have hangboards at home and they'll have a lot of cobwebs on them, so this is a good time to brush them, clean them out. Make sure you brush them with a nice brush. This brush has got CZ on it. I don't know what that stands for, but I just found it in the back the other day, so I don't know whose these CZ is. Let's see who that is. So make sure they're nice and clean. Using a bit of chalk. I like to start the session with a bit of liquid chalk. So kind of any grease when you're working in the yard or whatever, good to start with just a dab of liquid chalk. Not only is it good this time of year, it's already alcohol and chalk, so it's actually really good sound. That's hand sanitizer. So little note to self there, quite good. So start with a nice clean pair of hands. And with hanging, it's really important to keep good form. So if you're going to be swinging around a lot, you're more likely to fall off. So I'll give you an example. Stay over there. So if you jump on the hangboard and you're swinging around a lot, what you're doing, you're changing the force on your grip all the way through. So it's very important to keep nice and steady and keep a good centre of gravity on the way through. Cool. So if you're on one of the slopers and you're kind of swinging around, what's going to happen is that you'll probably slip off and then hurt yourself on the ground through. So keeping good form is very important. Not overdoing the elbows. So if you're just starting off hangboarding, it's not necessary to put all your body weight onto the board. All you want to be doing is just stimulating your fingers, talking to your fingers. So what you can do is keep your feet on the ground, or and start walking your feet back further away to make it harder for yourself on the way through. So if you use all your body weight, it's 100%. 50% on one arm, 50% on the other arm, all the way through. So we recommend, until you're ready for it, just keeping one foot on a chair or a milk crate, and then just get your body ready for it all the way through. It's also a good way to warm up. So I always like to start on big holds first to warm up. There's a couple of different methods of hangboarding. I like to try to keep it as simple as possible. So I usually just, to start off with, just do 3 sets. If you're rock climbing, quite often 7 seconds on, 3 seconds off is a very common hangboarding method. That's quite a lot, but if you think about it, that's very similar to climbing. So if you're hanging on to a hold, you might be hanging on for 7 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then as you let go, 1 and 2 and 3, and you grab the hold again, and you're on that for 7 seconds. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, and you let go for 3. So that's why they recommend that 7-3 repeaters. They're really good. But if you just want to start talking your fingers to start stimulating, just keep it nice and simple. So I'll just do 3 sets, and if you have a clock in front of you, you can go through this whole seconds. Generally I just count in my head. I do 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and it may not be a full second, but it's a certain period of time, then you can gauge yourself as you improve on the way through. So we'll start off nice big holds. Now I like to do 3 different types of arm positions. So one at about 125, so your elbows bent at a slight angle. One about 90 degrees, and then one at full thing all the way through. So to start with 125, just slightly bent through. Have a rest, have your chalk bag nice and handy. And go up to 90 degrees. And we'll go up to the full lock off. At this point, still just warming up, so I'm not overdoing it on the way through. A couple of things, if you feel like you've got too much weight on, and another simple thing I like to do is an old bike tube. So attach that. At home, I just get a little eyelet drilled into a beam, and I use a bike tube. Put my foot in it, and that way, it's only going to be a fraction of your body weight then, on my way through, and that way you can just lock off. So you can have your harness on, have it touch your harness if you want to, but I think the foot, just one foot in there, just ample enough, just to give that assistance on the way up. So now I'm feeling pretty warm, we'll get into it, but I'm only going to do 3 sets of each, just to speed up the process on the way through. So, still warming up, so I'm going to warm up by using a large finger grip, so 4 digits. I'm quite happy using the slower Beastmaker one, so let's start by hanging. It doesn't count at 10, but I just realised it's probably only about 7 seconds, but I'm happy with that. And again, I'm only going to rest as long as I need to. I'm going to feel that pressure going out of my fingers on the way through. You don't want to leave it too long, because you want to be stimulating your fingers long enough that it's going to go, hey, I need to get my fingers strong, I need to wake them up on the way through. It's really hard to make hangboarding really interesting. That's why I don't really do a lot of it. Climbing's way more interesting and involved, but when we're at home, we've got to do what we've got to do. So it's always good to have a few stimulating materials around, old rock mag, guidebook, something like that. So you know what you're doing it for. So why are you spending this time? Good thing about if you're at home by yourself, you know you're only challenging yourself. You're not trying to hang longer or harder than anybody else. So you're only going to find your own limits, so you know what's going on. Go through. So I've just done all 4 fingers. Now I'm going to start working on the back 3. So a couple of things. If you can't do one set of both hands on the one grip, what you can do is find an easier grip with one hand and then a challenging grip with the other hand as well. And that way you're still stimulating your fingers enough. But what I tend to do is try to make sure that you get 3 sets on each finger. So if you're going that option, we're going easy on one hand, challenging on the other hand. In that case, you might want to increase the reps to 6. So each finger group's going to get 3 sets all the way through. That's 2. So in total, my finger workouts, usually 15, 20 minutes. It's not even a long set. It's all about just stimulating and getting those fingers woken up, knowing that they're climbing fingers and they've got a job to do. And what you find when you start trying hard, you'll start losing a bit of form all the time. So your legs might come up to engage. So that's why we wanted to warm up our other muscles, our shoulder muscles, because quite often our fingers are only the smallest part of our climbing machine. So once they can't do the job, other muscles groups are going to step in and try to do it on the way through. So you'd be surprised how much core you actually use to keep your fingers on. So that's why I highly recommend, if you're not up to whole body weight, that you use your feet on a chair, and that way that's more closer to climbing specific training, because when you're climbing, you should always have your feet on something on the way through. So very rarely, if you cut loose on the climb, it's usually because you made a mistake, your feet have come off, so you get your feet back on as quick as possible. So training with your feet on is actually it's not a bad way, because that way you're still engaging your core, using your core muscles on the way through. So just on the back three, go to the front three, way through. Let's do a quick count of 10 for this video. But next time you just increase the time length a little bit, make sure you do 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 4. Front three. One more quick one. Now, the longer you hang on for, the more quicker you're going to run out of oxygen on the way through. So it's important to try to focus on your breath as well on the way through. Otherwise, you're just hanging on, and eventually you're going to fall off because you run out of oxygen rather than actually your muscles failing on the way through. And same as climbing, so learning how to breathe as you're climbing through. So hanging, when everything's engaged, it's a good time to practice trying to breathe, give your muscles that you're using the oxygen and the fuel that they need on the way through. It's really challenging to try to do exercise and talk at the same time, but we can. So now, the main reason I like the Beast Maker handball is it has inserted pockets. So because your back two fingers are different sizes, that one's quite a lot longer than that one. Whereas the pocket actually has two different depth drill holes right next to each other. So that way you can actually insert those back two fingers into those pockets. Where it's really challenging to do that on low out hangboards, because you're more like twisting your fingers around rather than actually training those back two fingers. So now I'm going to move to those two back two. Through. You'll find that that larger finger is still taking a lot of the weight. Excuse me, that's okay, that finger. But you're still getting that into the game, the pinky into the game. Is what we want. Sometimes having your chalk bag hanging up somewhere, so it just saves time, it's in the right spot, can make a good difference. If you're inside, make sure you don't make too much mess. Learning to let go is a very important part on the way through. So I just felt a little bit of a click going on there somewhere. It's just my old body. When I hear that going, I make an assessment, No, I'm okay. And I'll just come down slowly. So we've just done the back two fingers. We're going to do our front two now, and they'll give that finger a little bit of a rest all the way through. So we do our front two fingers. I've just started on the middle size one there, but I found the last bit of that a little bit challenging, so what I might do, I might just, this next one, I might step it back up to a simpler size pocket. Give your fingers a good shake. It's a good way to get them back in again. When you're shaking, it's not a bad idea to shake up the old energy has been poured out, all that gas is getting out. Put your hands down, helps the blood pump new blood back into your arms. So on the Beastmaker hangboard, it's good. There's only like a couple of different options. There's so many other different hangboards. Is that in shot?
Yep.
There are lots of different options on the way through. So to keep things active and interesting as well, sometimes it's good just to try different holds on the way through. So we don't always need, there's no hard set rule that you have to keep your fingers side by side. So these other hangboards, like sometimes you just play around, have a bit of fun, make sure you don't overdo it. But you can have two fingers up, two fingers down, and then just try your fingers in different hand-hold positions all the way through. Sometimes that's too hard. What you can do, you have one hand on a good jug, and the other hand's on just something challenging. And that way you're still using your fingers in different ways to keep them going, keep them active on the way through. Now, for most people, they'll have a stronger set of two fingers. So when you're doing pockets, you'll choose a set of fingers that you prefer. For me, it's these two fingers, so from the middle two. So for me, it seems to be that the tendons to be nice and straight, so that's kind of why they seem to be the strongest. Whereas the front two fingers, if you engage them, because they're different lengths, they'll slightly turn your hand, and then your tendons are slightly got a kink on it, so they're not so efficient. Everyone's different, but for my arm, that's why these are much stronger. And my middle two are dramatically stronger than the rest of my fingers, so I can quite happily hang on these lower ones for a fair while on the way through. That's just open grip on the way through. So it's really hard to, you wouldn't be crimping, you wouldn't chisel grip or lockdown grip on that. There are a couple of climbs that I've done where the holds are only big enough for two fingers. So what you can do is two fingers on the hold and then bring your thumb over the top. And then hence you've got two fingers plus a thumb. That's 3 out of those 5 fingers helping you out. And other times you might be 2 fingers, stacking your fingers on top. And that's why it's good to have finger mobility as well. It's not just strong fingers, but having fingers that work in lots of different orientations, direction all the way through. That was halfway between 90 degrees and cool. So we'll call that. So that's all the grips. The other thing is slopers. Slopers, these days, all the climbing gyms have got big holds everywhere. So slopers are getting more into things. So training your sloper strength and your open-handed grip as well, pretty important. So the Beastmaker has really good slopers on them. So again, this is going to be very important not to swing, and make sure you find your centre of gravity before you hold on to it all the way through. So it depends on which wooden hangboard you got. Mine at home's got a little bit more moisture on it, so I'm able to do one hand on the middle one hand on the outside, just to make it a little bit more interesting. So that's 2 different grips, and then I'll move to the other side. And with the slopers on the Beastmaker, I try not to chalk up too much, but it doesn't seem to help on that angle. So having a little bit of damp fingers on the wooden holds seem to help a little bit. All the way through. Cool. So if you didn't have a hangboard, we'll move over to the door frame here just to wrap it up. So you don't necessarily need to be hanging all the time like I mentioned before. So quite often when you grab a handhold, most people will grab it first and then apply whatever grip they want to do on the way through. I've noticed in these days that a lot of people aren't using full crimp, which is a good way to stay uninjured for longer. But outdoors, like up at Nelson's Bay or Blue Mountains where you've got small crimpers, it's pretty necessary to go to a full crimp eventually, and that sort of skill's being lost. It's not a bad thing, but it's also something that if you can't open hand a really small handhold, then you might have to go to the full crimp all the way through. And that's where the door frame is really good. It's really hard to do a full crimp on the Beastmaker, so I just have a block of wood underneath it. And then I'm able to do full crimp, so hands up and into the top. So that's a good way to train, get that thumb working over the top of the fingers. But again, you've got to make sure that you're up to that. If you're not up to that, another really good exercise would be to just some body weight and just roll your fingers up on the way through. So that way, you haven't got all your body weight, but you're still getting your fingers full through the full range of motion on the way through. So quite often, that's what a lot of people do. They'll hit the hold first and then get the information they need to apply the right grip on the way through. And that's what that's kind of simulating. Touching the hold and then applying it into the grip that you need on the way through. So, nice simple hangboard workout. It doesn't have to be too advanced. A lot of people use like that 3 sets as a really good way to warm up. It's only you got to know what your limits are and make sure you don't overdo it. So if it hurts, learn to let go on the way through. Cool. So it's more about talking to your fingers. If you're by yourself, no one's going to know that you're actually going, come on, get strong, talk to your fingers. But send the messages to your fingers that, hey, you still need to work, get ready when we're allowed outdoors again and back to the Pulse gym, that we're going to have our tools ready for the job that we need. All the best, guys. Hope everything goes well. See you later.